On June 30th, 2023, I released my first Steam game, Breezy. Since then, I've done a few smaller projects and prototypes, but I haven't announced a new game. Why is that? Well, on August 13th of that same year, I saw my family for the last time. Because I went to college, Georgia Tech specifically. Don't worry, I saw my family again a few months later. Also, while we're revealing secrets, this is my face. But in all seriousness, college is busy, and I didn't want to commit to another game project on top of that. In this video though, I'll explain how that changed. To start, why Georgia Tech? Well, it's pretty much been my ideal school since childhood. I live in Georgia, which means if I attend an in-state school and I keep my grades up, I have access to the Zell Miller Scholarship, which gives me free tuition. I'm majoring in computer science, although Georgia Tech does have a computational media program that includes game dev. I could have majored in CM, but I do a lot more coding than just games. But I've always got to have a little game dev in my life. After all, video games were my first love in terms of programming. And luckily I'm at the 4th best school in the nation for game dev. Which takes us back to August 2023. I found myself browsing the Discord Student Hub for Georgia Tech, and I discovered a club that looks very interesting. No, not that one. A club called VGDev, short for Video Game Development. Eventually, about halfway through the fall semester, I finally worked up the courage and free time to attend one of the meetings. To be clear, I didn't really know what to expect. I thought we would all just sit around in a circle and talk about our hand-drawn, procedurally generated Metroidvanias we made in Unity. But the meeting I walked into was a lot different. To explain it, here's how the club is organized. Each semester the club forms 6 different teams. Each team is led by 1 or 2 people and is tasked with developing a game. At the start of the semester, people who are interested in leading a team will pitch their game idea to the club's leaders. The top 6 pitches are accepted, and once the games are announced, anybody can work on them. You can join as many teams as you want, and you can contribute whatever suits you best: programming, art, music, etc. Every few meetings, the team leads present their progress to the rest of the club. I happened to walk in on one of these meetings called Milestone 2, so I listened to the team leads talk about their progress, and after the meeting I got a chance to play a demo of each game. And, perhaps to my surprise, these weren't amateur projects. They were incomplete, sure, but surprisingly playable and fun. And the meeting itself was enjoyable, with VGDev leadership and veterans providing plenty of enthusiasm. I ended up lurking at the meetings for the rest of the semester, but I didn't end up joining any teams. So when spring rolled around, I was determined to change that. I wanted to contribute to at least one game. So, during the first meeting where all the team leads introduced their games, I listened carefully and one game caught my eye: Sylvies Constellation. It's similar to Professor Layton with a focus on puzzles and dialogue, but the story is based on Greek mythology. I won't go into the details, but the point is, this game was completely different from anything I had worked on before. It was also made in Unity, which was my game engine of choice at the time, so I proofread my will, renewed my vows, signed the waiver, and joined the team for Sylvies Constellation. I joined the game as a programmer and music composer, and I started off with a pretty ambitious task: creating the game's save system. I knew this would have to be done right, so I put a lot of effort into each aspect, even making the saving process asynchronous to reduce lag. After finishing that task, I continued contributing to the project throughout the semester, writing 2 songs and programming a few different mechanics. I even received the Delionic Award for incredible work, which told me I was going in the right direction. More importantly, I had lots of fun working on Sylvie over that spring and over the following summer, so I started coming up with a plan for fall of 2024. Instead of working on one game, I could contribute to several, and maybe even consider pitching a game myself in the spring. But as always, at the beginning of the fall semester, well before the first meeting, I got an announcement on the VGDev Discord server. Leadership had decided to extend the deadline for pitching games. That's interesting. Then, a few days before that extended deadline, I get another announcement. There have only been 5 game pitches so far, and leadership is specifically looking for people who haven't led a game before. At that point I figured, why not throw my hat in the ring and pitch a game? But that raises the question, what do I pitch? I had a few options here. After releasing Breezy, I made 2 prototypes, called Deck Dojo and Suit 'em Up. I had spent a month developing each of them in Unity, and they both had potential, but those games already felt a little too complete, and I still have plans to expand them into full games. I should mention one of the main rules of VGDev. You're not allowed to make any money off of VGDev's game, since that would be profiting off of your team's work. So even if you expand a game into a full Steam release, you're not allowed to sell it for profit. So with those ideas off the table, what else is there? Well, I did have an idea at one point for a 3rd monthly prototype, a 2D city building game where you stacked buildings on top of each other and rotated them like Tetris. You could buy buildings that were floating on giant hot air balloons as depicted in this piece of concept art, which is as far as I got with this prototype idea. It's not even close to complete, but it's pretty interesting. let's pitch it. But first, let's flesh out the game design a little more. I did a lot of thinking and came up with some ideas. You play as the mayor of a floating island, hence the hot air balloons, that only has 60 days worth of fuel. Your goal is to earn as much money as possible to buy a nuclear reactor before the island falls to the ground. The game uses a day system similar to Civilization. Every day there's a chance that a new balloon could appear carrying a building. If you spend coins to buy the building, you can place it using Tetris mechanics. At the start of each day, different buildings provide different bonuses depending on certain factors. For example, an apartment building gives a flat 1 coin per day, while a park gives 1 coin per day for each adjacent building. So you have to position your building strategically to build up as much money as possible. Phew, that's a lot. But I wasn't done with this pitch quite yet. How are we going to make this game? Well, this is around the time that I was becoming a Godot-pilled Foss-maxer. You see, Sylvies Constellation used the Unity engine, which went pretty well, but towards the end of the project it became difficult to navigate and very unpleasant to use. See my previous video for more details. This will be the 4th ever VGDev game made in Godot, so it was a little risky. On top of that, I had only made 2 very simple prototypes in Godot, but even with that small amount of experience, I was ready to go all the way. So I started developing some of those mechanics in Godot to get a feel for how the game would play. The most important of these was the building placement system, which took a lot of math, but looked really good in a gameplay demo. Satisfied with this pitch, I submitted it to the club's leadership, had a short interview, and was told a few days later that Tetris City, as I decided to name it, would be a fall 2024 VGDev game. So, now came the fun part. Of course, my pitch to leadership was just the tip of the iceberg. Now that my game was accepted, I had to make a presentation to the club at large to try and convince people to join my team. I compiled the essential information about the game, basically a less detailed version of what I described to you all, along with what potential team members could expect. I even threw a little humor in there.
So you could say I'm a little crazy. I like to do crazy things, you know? I liked it. It was fun. You should try it sometime.
Pretty soon after the pitch meeting, people started joining the team's Discord server in droves, and I think this is a good time to discuss what exactly my roles are as the team lead, because the first role is an important one: coordinate the other team members. Obviously this is mainly done with the Discord server, which I'm not showing here for privacy reasons, but we also have team meetings. Most VGDev games divide their members up into sub-teams for programming, art, etc., and just like regular teams, you can join as many as you want. Then they have weekly meetings for each sub-team. I decided to mix things up a little bit and hold an all-hands meeting on alternating weeks instead of sub-team meetings. This frees up my schedule since all the other teams have 2 co-leads to split up the work, and makes it easier to coordinate the team towards important goals. I also had to figure out a solution for task tracking. Since Trello recently made their free plan more restrictive, most of the other teams are using the open source Taiga instead, which replicates most of the features but requires you to send email invitations to all your team members. I decided to use a big Google Sheet instead since I like living on the edge. As team lead, I'm also responsible for picking up slack where it's needed in the game itself. Since Tetris City has a lot of complex and important systems to implement early on, I took the role of lead programmer. Not the only programmer, mind you, but I fleshed out some of the systems that I didn't get a chance to in the initial pitch phase. My artists, on the other hand, have a lot more creative freedom to take the reins. My other role as lead is to present to the rest of the club periodically. Remember those update meetings I mentioned? Well, I'm responsible for putting together slideshows for those meetings to show off the game's progress and attract more people to our team. Speaking of progress, have we made any of that since the start of the semester? Well, I think so. Starting with the first couple weeks, the game idea was already being fleshed out. We finalized a list of buildings, came up with a story blurb, and got some lovely concept art sketches. In the weeks after that, we started seeing some improvements to the game itself. I made the first draft of the game's main theme and got it playing in-game, and you can now buy buildings with a dialogue box and place them down. At this point, the core game loop is pretty much complete from beginning to end, and the game is still being worked on as we speak. We just wrapped up Milestone 2, including the public demo of the game where the rest of the club members got to try it out, just like me in my first ever VGDev meeting. Then in December, the game will be finalized and submitted to the club's website. But if you're too impatient for that, I've got you covered. I'm keeping a recent build on my itch.io page for anybody to play, and it'll stay updated too. I took a few hours to set up a batch script that builds the game and uploads it with a click of a button, and it was totally worth it. So, that's my new game. Unexpected, I know, but I'm very excited about this project. I try to keep you all updated on Tetris City as much as possible, but of course I can't share everything. I want to respect the privacy of my team members. Despite this, I want to make a few more videos about the game as development continues, just in case anybody wants to get involved with game dev at their school. And if you do, I highly encourage it. Although it's a lot different from solo development, it's just as fun and it can be even more rewarding. But I'm sure all my Mondovi superfans are wondering, what about my other projects? Well, as for the Breezy relaunch, it's still still progressing slowly. The first update containing the 2 new courses is almost done, but I still need to polish things up and add the final boss. The second update containing the multiplayer mode will come after that. There's also Shepherd Tones, which is progressing comparatively quickly. There's a recording studio here at Georgia Tech, and I want to reserve a session pretty soon to record the final vocal takes. Once I do that, it's off to finalize the album. And what about this channel? Well, as you might have noticed, my upload schedule has been all over the place since August, and unfortunately I can't guarantee that it'll get any better. Now that I can use footage of my face, editing should be a bit easier, especially once I get a better webcam. But that's about all I have to say. If you're on the team, what are you waiting for? Get back to work. Lovingly. If, by some minuscule chance, you're at Georgia Tech, happen to see this, and don't already know me, come say hi. Otherwise, have a good day. Otherwise, have a good day.